Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. All right, so David.
Sure. So
your thoughts on
we recorded the Near Memo last week, and literally as soon as we hung up, I think, Mike, you shared the link in our private Slack channel that ChatGPT had formally launched SearchGPT to the public. So we sort of mistimed our recording last week, but I spent quite a bit of time with it the day that it launched, doing a whole bunch of sort of local and regional type searches, both sort of, I would say, mid-funnel and low funnel. And I came away just very, very impressed with the execution of the product, I would say. I think that there's been a lot of discussion in the SEO community or in the local SEO community about how poor some of the local search results are for what I would say are sort of longer tail categories. This speaks to the similar problem that Apple has with respect to just a lack of granular data when it comes to local businesses. This is largely relying, we think, so far on the Bing Places data set. And so that also speaks to the sort of weak quality of that data, even as a starting point. But I think that sort of misses, unlike Apple Maps launch, which had all kinds of problems, which was really focused on this very specific, like, ultimate bottom of funnel activity, right? And so you really needed that data to be rock solid, and it wasn't. And so Apple Maps was sort of at least initially, was a massive failure. Here, I don't think that that's really going to be the primary use case for a lot of people who are experimenting with SearchGPT or with ChatGPT as a entree into SearchGPT. I think that it's going to be more informational queries. It's going to be more, like even the kinds of things Mike was just showing on Apple Intelligence, like what's going on with the Bills game today, those kinds of searches. And for those, I think actually I was very impressed with not just the quality, but just the mode of interaction with the product. And the thing that struck me, which is actually really interesting, I signed up for a ChatGPT account, which we had a corporate account for a while, and I did most of my searches in the corporate account that Mike has been running for a long time. But I signed up for a fresh account last week and downloaded the ChatGPT app on my phone. And the really interesting thing from a local standpoint, I think, is that if you conduct a search in the same chat, in the same window, the context holds for a very, very, very long time. And so if you did a search, last week for near me that included the term near me, basically all of your subsequent queries, SearchGPT was sort of showing local results at the end. They sort of interpreted that as being relevant to every single subsequent query. On the desktop, that's maybe not as relevant because I at least found myself, clicking the new chat button quite a bit. On the phone, I think that's huge. On the phone, I've not found myself starting a new chat ever. I just sort of add a question to whatever was there before. And so if you think about the use case of local being so strong on the phone and the sort of long context window, I actually think that there's a chance that SearchGPT, if it's widely adopted, you'll actually see more local intent, quote unquote, air quotes, results because of this sort of extremely long context window, which I think is kind of interesting. So that's my sort of broad stroke takeaway. And at the end of my post last week, I said, this is really, truly, this is the first product I've seen that, could be a quote unquote Google killer. Now that phrase is wildly overused, and I actually don't think that SearchGPT will quote unquote kill Google. But I do think it's the first product I've seen that might actually take substantial market share, whether that's 10% in the next 2 to 3 years, something like that. I actually do think that there's a realistic chance that happens, both because of the sort of the product quality, the sort of the lack of clutter, the very conversational interface, ability to ask questions back and forth without having to retype queries, all of that stuff. I think that's really compelling. And I think that ChatGPT has distribution in a way that very few other products have had. Like, we think about Bing never achieved the cultural relevance of that ChatGPT had within a month of launching, right? And Bing's been around for 15, 20 years now. And so ChatGPT already has that. We saw this week they bought the domain chat.com from Dharmesh Shah. So, feels like they're sort of really leaning into chat as their brand moving forward. I feel like, and they're also pushing the installation of the Chrome extension very, very heavily on existing users. And so I think all these things combined, like they're making a real push to sort of, make a dent in Google's market share. And I think the product right now is good enough where that you're going to start getting people curious, trying it out. And I think it's at a level, it sort of has met the minimum viable product threshold. And I think they will be able to backfill that data quality for some of these very low funnel queries over time. But right now, what matters is distribution. And I think that there's a real chance that they're going to get it. So.
Well, 18.2, which is coming out in December on iOS, will have ChatGPT integration into Siri. And it'll be interesting to see.
That's a huge distribution play for them.
Huge distribution play. It'll be interesting to see, though, which of these queries Apple brings into their private cloud, personal arena, and which of them they push through to ChatGPT.
I would assume 100% of local will be Apple Maps.
Well, you saw, movies, sports, news. Apple's already has great graphs in those, and local. I don't think those are going anywhere. And I presume that Apple is being paid for the YouTube redirects. And so recipes, it'd be interesting to see how they deal with recipes, for example. Which is
you're going to get a limited number of queries to ChatGPT, and then they're going to upsell you into the paid product, is what it looks like.
Yeah. But how many do you need? All right. And again, if Apple's taking the easy ones off the top, how many are going to be left? I don't know. But they are getting distribution next month. It'll be a big test.
Well, it's a brand thing as much as it is a direct customer acquisition channel, right? It's further promoting the brand of ChatGPT as a solution to certain kinds of problems, and it may, we won't know the overlap of native ChatGPT users from new users, but it will help them regardless of what form it takes. Ultimately, it will help them. And I agree with you, David. The UI and the user experience in ChatGPT are really powerful. The context window point is really important. I would say that the conversational, you spoke to this in your piece, but I would say the conversational interaction, not just the context, but the ability to refine kind of effortlessly and to drill into a particular aspect of the results is really powerful. So you can do travel planning and I just want to highlight the specific example. I thought it was incredibly powerful and it was accurate. It was not a hallucination, and it did require some level of sort of structured data, if you will. But so I asked it, what are the best golf courses in Ireland? And it gave me a list of 8 or 9 courses, all of which were very good. I have my own opinions, but they would sort of match what the general public would say were the best ones. And then my follow-up question was, what about links only? And so it actually stripped out the 1 or 2 Parkland courses that it had included and added 2 others. And so I didn't have to say, what are the best links golf courses in Ireland? It was a very conversational follow-up, and it knew the context from the sort of previous search and had the ability to sort of filter down. Now, that's obviously a very sort of, I don't know, it's going to be an irrelevant query for 99.99% of the population, but where I think it really might play a role. But it's an example.
Like e-commerce, travel, hotels, right? So best hotels in Paris. Okay, what about ones with free breakfast? Okay, what about ones that are 5 minutes from a metro stop? There's a very natural sort of faceted drilling down filtering process that I think this product seems to do extremely well. And like I said, I feel like the data quality will get there over time. And it's really the sort of dramatic interface change that we've all been advocating Google make for a long time. And it strikes me that this is just a quantum leap better than the awful AI organized pages that essentially try to do this, but they don't interpret your query well enough. And the way that they organize things doesn't make sense to a lot of users. And so I think Google, at least in local and probably in e-commerce too, where they're making a whole bunch of UI changes right now, I feel like they'd be way better served just replacing their entire search result with Gemini for a lot of these queries. Like this is just a much more efficient,
essentially duplicating
way to search.
Yeah, essentially duplicating what you're describing with ChatGPT, right?
David, I only have one question as a non-golfer, and this is on behalf of our listeners and me. How is links being used in a golf context?
Right. So
not to confuse it with SEO.
Exactly. So I love links, both in the SEO context and in the golf context. So a links course is a typically seaside course on sandy soil with limited sort of man-made features and very few trees. So it's very much just like an out in the open. The soil is very firm and fast, so the ball rolls forever. You play a lot of shots on the ground. Yeah, so that's what links means. Parkland course or a heathland course is heathland is sort of in between. Parkland is sort of what most people think of when they think of a golf course: trees, well manicured, all of that, and that's not my preferred style of golf. So.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Well,
as I noted before, I never would have guessed that.
There's a lot of criticism of SearchGPT, ChatGPT results and hallucination, and people defending search, saying search is a much more accurate mechanism than an LLM for delivering information. There was a report that was generated partly by Microsoft, but not exclusively, that talked about the biases and inaccuracies of LLMs versus search. I'd have to go back and look at it. But I think that all of this will improve over time. And one use case that I think will be very powerful, I don't know if Apple will take advantage of it, or ChatGPT is shopping product search, whether it's for local products or e-commerce. And I think there's a huge opportunity for Apple here to get structured data, both in local inventory data and e-commerce data. And I think that there's also a tremendous opportunity, as you've outlined, David, with the refinement process, the conversational refinement process, looking for products. And I would love to see those be developed, because I think this is a huge opportunity. Tell me where I can buy a XYZ and give me, an online and offline option. Google has not realized that promise. Google has long held out the promise of being sort of an everything e-commerce and offline product search vehicle, and it's not fully realized that yet. I think there's still an opportunity for somebody to do a better job with that. And the local approach.
Apple's approach is interesting. Of here's what we totally trust, and beyond that, you're out to ChatGPT or you're out to Google, and I think that trust is going to be really important moving forward. I think that the distrust we have with either hallucinating AIs or with Google spam is a growing problem, and Apple's looked at that and said they don't want that problem. They don't want to be associated with that problem. And which is why I don't think they'll ever do a search engine per se, but they will as they get relationships with e-commerce companies and bring in inventory data, which is not a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not a huge deal to these guys. I think they will be pushing the boundaries of what they're doing versus what they allow other people to do. YouTube, ChatGPT.
We in the technology industry make these distinctions between what is search, what is not search, what is structured data, blah, blah, blah. Consumers don't make those distinctions. They just want the information, right? So they will go to whatever source is delivering the best and most reliable information, or the best experience around that information. I think the conversational nature of ChatGPT, the ability at the top of the funnel to sort of brainstorm, hey, I'm looking for a gift for somebody who loves golf and blah, 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 and then get a bunch of suggestions and then drill into those suggestions and say, something that costs between this and this price point and has these qualities. I think that's an incredibly powerful situation that we've talked about with faceted search in the past, that Google cannot deliver on that right now. And that's ChatGPT's opportunity. And in a different way, it's Apple's opportunity as well. Trusted sources.
Yeah, I think Google could deliver on that right now. Google could deliver on that right now, but they're sort of institutional blinders of like, this is how we approach search, and also their reliance on ad revenue as the means of sustaining the company. I think that those two things work very much in opposition to a sort of radical clean slate approach, which both ChatGPT and Apple have the ability and sort of benefit of doing. So
they're going to have to do that at some point. They're going to have to really look to Gemini to be the next the 3.0 version of search, because they're not going to be able to extricate themselves from the box that they've found themselves in that you just outlined. I think, the monetization and the structures that they've set up. So, all right. One final note before we go today. This has been a good if long discussion. We've sent out a couple of notices to our audience that we are sort of we're sort of in an existential place, and we're trying to decide about whether and how to move forward. I'm going to continue to send those out for the next couple of newsletters. Please take a look at that information. We are looking for financial support, direct financial support, not donations. No, we're not NPR, but we're
although that's a model
we're really at a crossroads. We're really at a crossroads. We love doing this, but we need to make more money. Our research has been very valuable for the clients we've done it for, but there haven't been enough of those. So we need to look to alternative ways to generate revenue. And please read that on the newsletter when you get it, and give us your feedback on that.
I would add, if you have a creative alternative research project that you would like to pursue with us, reach out to us. Somebody did from that last email, and it's a very interesting local research project. And
it's a product roadmap / SEO project, which I think is going to be very interesting. So we are still very much open for business with research projects and consulting, but we also need a more kind of a foundational source of support. And so we'd like you to take a look at that if possible. So as always, thanks again for listening. Tell your friends, and keep clicking through.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.